Millionaire man lost his wallet. A poor farmer found it and got more than a reward. The autumn sun cast long shadows across the rolling hills of Millbrook County, Nebraska. Thomas Mitchell wiped the sweat from his weathered brow as he guided his old John Deere tractor across the 40 acres he'd been farming for the past 15 years. The corn harvest was nearly complete, but the numbers in his ledger told a story he didn't want to face: another year of barely breaking even. "Come on, old girl," he muttered to the tractor as it sputtered slightly. At 42, Tom had calloused hands that told the story of every sunrise he'd spent working this land that had been in his family for 3 generations. His wife Sarah worked 2 part-time jobs in town just to help make ends meet, and their 12-year-old daughter Emma had started asking why they couldn't afford the school trip to Washington. D.C. As Tom turned the tractor near the edge of his Wes property, close to where the county road curved past Miller's Creek, something unusual caught his eye. A black leather object lay partially hidden beneath a cluster of golden maple leaves that had fallen from the old oak tree marking his property line. Tom shut off the engine and climbed down, his boots crunching on the dry autumn leaves. As he bent to pick up the object, he realized it was an expensive-looking wallet, the kind of genuine leather that probably cost more than what Tom spent on groceries in a month. "Well, I'll be," he said to himself, turning the wallet over in his rough hands. It was heavy, clearly well made, with the initials RH embossed in gold lettering. Tom looked around the empty road, wondering how long the wallet had been there. This stretch of Route 47 wasn't heavily traveled, mostly just locals and the occasional lost tourist trying to find their way back to the interstate. Opening the wallet carefully, Tom's eyes widened. The first thing he saw was a thick stack of $100 bills. He'd never seen so much cash in one place. There had to be at least $3,000, maybe more. His heart began to race as he thought about his overdue mortgage payment, Emma's school needs, and the tractor repairs he'd been putting off. Behind the cash, he found several credit cards, all bearing the name Richard Hamilton and a driver's license with a photo of a distinguished-looking man in his 50s with silver hair and kind eyes. The address listed was in Omaha, about 2 hours away. Tom's hands trembled slightly as he continued looking through the wallet's contents. There was a business card identifying Richard Hamilton as the CEO of Hamilton Industries, a manufacturing company Tom had heard of but never really paid attention to. There were also several family photos, a beautiful woman who appeared to be Richard's wife, and pictures of children and grandchildren. As Tom stood there in the fading afternoon light, holding what felt like the answer to all his financial problems, his conscience began to wage war with his desperation. The practical voice in his head whispered that no one would ever know. Rich people like this probably wouldn't even miss $3,000. They probably spent that much on a single dinner. But then he looked at the family photos again, and he thought about Sarah and Emma. What kind of example would he be setting? What kind of man would he be if he kept money that wasn't his? Tom closed the wallet and looked up at the darkening sky. His grandfather's voice echoed in his memory. "Son, a man's character isn't measured by what he does when people are watching. It's measured by what he does when nobody's looking." The sound of an approaching car interrupted his thoughts. A sleek black BMW was slowing down, the driver apparently looking for something. Tom quickly pocketed the wallet and walked toward the road. The car stopped, and a man who looked exactly like the photo in the wallet rolled down the window. He appeared stressed and anxious. "Excuse me," the man said, his voice carrying the educated tone of someone accustomed to boardrooms. "I'm sorry to bother you, but I don't suppose you've seen a wallet around here? I stopped about an hour ago to help a motorist whose car had broken down, and I think it might have fallen out of my jacket." Tom studied the man's face, noting the genuine concern in his eyes. This wasn't just about the money. There was something deeper troubling him. "You'd be Richard Hamilton?" Tom asked, pulling the wallet from his pocket. Richard's face lit up with relief and gratitude. Yes, oh my God, thank you. I can't tell you how worried I've been. He quickly parked the car and got out, extending his hand to Tom. I'm Richard. But please, call me Rich. Tom Mitchell, Tom replied, shaking the offered hand. I found it under that oak tree there. Looked like it had been there a while. Rich took the wallet and quickly checked its contents, his relief evident. Everything's here. I can't thank you enough, Mr. Mitchell. That wallet ... It's not just about the money. There are pictures of my family and ... double quotes. He paused, his voice catching slightly. My wife passed away 6 months ago. The last photo we took together is in there. It's irreplaceable. Tom felt a lump form in his throat. I'm sorry for your loss, Mr. Hamilton. Please, it's Rich. And thank you, not just for returning the wallet, but for your kindness. Rich reached into the wallet and pulled out several $100 bills. Please let me give you a reward. This means more to me than you could possibly know. Tom held up his hands, backing away slightly. That's not necessary, sir. I was just doing what anyone would do. But I insist, Rich said, stepping forward with the money. At least let me give you something for your trouble. Really, I can't accept that, Tom said firmly, though his eyes briefly lingered on the bills that could solve so many of his immediate problems. I didn't do it for a reward. Rich studied Tom's face, clearly impressed by his refusal. You know, Mr. Mitchell, Tom, in my line of work, I don't often meet people like you. Most people would have either kept the wallet or demanded a reward. Tom shrugged uncomfortably. I was raised to believe that doing the right thing is its own reward. Your parents raised you well, Rich said, putting the money back in his wallet. But please, at least let me ask, is there anything I can do for you? Any way I can help? Tom glanced back at his old tractor and the farmland stretching behind him. For a moment, he considered telling this wealthy stranger about his struggles, about the mounting bills and the constant worry that kept him awake at night, but his pride held him back. I appreciate the offer, but we're doing just fine, Tom. Lead smoothly. Rich nodded, but Tom could see the man wasn't entirely convinced. There was something in Rich's eyes, a sharpness that suggested he was used to reading people and situations. Well, Rich said, pulling out a business card, if you ever change your mind about anything, please don't hesitate to call me. I mean that sincerely. Tom took the card, though he had no intention of using it. Thank you, Mr. Hamilton. Rich. I hope you have a safe drive back to Omaha. As Rich got back into his BMW, he rolled down the window one more time. Tom, you've restored a little of my faith in humanity today. I won't forget this. Tom watched the expensive car disappear down the county road, then looked at the business card in his hand. He was about to throw it away when he noticed something written on the back in Rich's handwriting. A good deed is never forgotten. R.H. That evening, as Tom sat at the kitchen table with Sarah and Emma, he told them about finding and returning the wallet. Sarah listened with pride in her eyes, while Emma seemed less impressed. But Dad, Emma said, if he was so rich, why didn't you at least take the reward? We could have used that money for my school trip. Sarah gently corrected their daughter. Emma, your father did the right thing. Money isn't worth compromising your integrity. But what good is integrity if we can't afford anything? Emma asked with the brutal honesty that only children possess. Tom reached across the table and took his daughter's hand. Sweetheart, there are some things more valuable than money. Like being able to look at yourself in the mirror every morning and know you're a good person. Later that night, as Tom lay awake listening to the old farmhouse creak in the wind, he couldn't help but wonder if he'd made the right choice. The bills weren't going to pay themselves, and his integrity wouldn't keep the bank from foreclosing if he couldn't make his payments. But somewhere deep in his heart, he knew his grandfather would have been proud. 3 weeks later, on a crisp November morning, Tom was repairing a section of fence that had been damaged in a recent storm when he saw a familiar black BMW turning into his driveway. His heart sank, wondering if Richard Hamilton had somehow discovered that money was missing from the wallet after all. Rich got out of the car, but this time he wasn't alone. A young woman in a business suit followed him, carrying a leather briefcase and a clipboard. "Tom," Rich called out, walking across the yard with a broad smile. "I hope you don't mind us dropping by unannounced." "Of course not," Tom replied, setting down his hammer and walking over to meet them. "What brings you back to Millbrook County?" "This is Jennifer Walsh, my assistant," Rich said, introducing the young woman. "And I'm here because I have a proposition for you." Tom felt uncomfortable. "Rich, I told you, I don't want any reward for returning your wallet." "This isn't about a reward," Rich said, his eyes twinkling with something that looked like excitement. "This is about business. You see, Tom, I didn't become successful by accident. I got where I am by recognizing talent and character when I see it. And what I saw in you 3 weeks ago got me thinking." Jennifer opened her briefcase and pulled out a folder. "Mr. Mitchell, Mr. Hamilton has been researching your situation." Tom stiffened. "My situation?" Rich held up a hand. "Please don't be offended. After you returned my wallet, I couldn't stop thinking about you. There was something about the way you handled yourself, your integrity, your refusal to accept a reward. So I did a little digging, not to invade your privacy, but because I had a feeling you might be exactly what I've been looking for." "I'm not sure I understand," Tom said warily. "Hamilton Industries has been expanding into agricultural technology," Rich explained. "We're developing new farming equipment, sustainable agriculture solutions, and we need someone to head up our rural operations division. Someone who understands farming from the ground up, who has the respect of the farming community, and who has the kind of character I can trust completely." Tom stared at him in disbelief. "You're offering me a job?" "Not just any job," Jennifer interjected, opening the folder. "We're talking about an executive position with a starting salary of $125,000 per year, full benefits, company car, and profit sharing. Plus, you'd be able to keep farming your land. We'd actually prefer it, as it would give you continued credibility in the agricultural community." Tom felt dizzy. I don't have a college degree. I'm just a farmer." "You have something better than a college degree," Rich said seriously. "You have 25 years of real-world farming experience, and more importantly, you have integrity. Do you know how hard it is to find someone in the corporate world who will do the right thing, even when no one is watching?" "But why me?" Tom asked, still struggling to process what was happening. Rich's expression grew more serious. "Tom, after my wife died, I've been reevaluating everything in my life. I realized that I'd become surrounded by people who told me what they thought I wanted to hear, people who were motivated primarily by money. When you refused to take a reward for returning my wallet, it reminded me that there are still people in this world who operate by a moral compass instead of a profit motive." Sarah appeared on the front porch, having heard the voices. Rich and Jennifer walked over to introduce themselves and explain the offer. Tom watched his wife's face transform from confusion to amazement to cautious hope. This is incredible," Sarah said, looking between Rich and Tom. "But are you sure?" "Tom doesn't have experience in corporate management." "Mrs. Mitchell," Jennifer said kindly, "your husband has been managing a complex agricultural operation for 15 years. He understands budgets, planning, logistics, and personnel management. More importantly, he has the trust and respect of the farming community, which is invaluable for what we're trying to accomplish." Rich nodded. "Plus, we'd provide all the corporate training he needs. What we can't teach is character, and Tom has that in abundance." Emma had joined them on the porch, listening with wide eyes. "Dad, does this mean we can afford my school trip?" Everyone laughed, breaking the tension. "I think we can manage that, sweetheart," Tom said, his voice thick with emotion. Over the next hour, Rich and Jennifer outlined the details of the position. Tom would be responsible for developing relationships with farmers across the Midwest, testing new agricultural technologies, and providing feedback on product development. He would travel some, but his base of operations would remain in Nebraska, allowing him to keep farming his own land. "There's one more thing," Rich said as they were wrapping up. "I'd like to offer to buy a small stake in your farm, not to take it over, but to help you modernize and expand. Consider it a research partnership. What you learn here could help us develop better products for farmers everywhere." Tom looked at Sarah, seeing the tears of relief and joy in her eyes. For the first time in years, the crushing weight of financial worry was lifting from his shoulders. "Rich," Tom said finally, "I have to ask, is this really all because I returned your wallet?" Rich smiled. "Tom, that wallet contained $3,200 in cash. But what you gave me back was worth far more than that. You reminded me that there are still honest people in this world, people who do the right thing simply because it's right. In my business, that's rarer and more valuable than gold." 6 months later, Tom stood in the conference room of Hamilton Industries headquarters in Omaha, presenting his findings from field tests of their new precision farming equipment. Wearing a suit that still felt foreign but no longer uncomfortable, he addressed a room full of executives and engineers. "The feedback from farmers in Iowa, Nebraska, and Kansas has been overwhelmingly positive," Tom reported, clicking to the next slide of his presentation. "The new GPS-guided planting system has increased crop yields by an average of 12% while reducing seed waste by 8%. After the meeting, Rich walked Tom to his new office, a corner office with windows overlooking the Missouri River. "You know," Rich said, "when I offered you this job, I thought I was doing you a favor. But it turns out you've been doing me one. Your insights have revolutionized our agricultural division. Our profits in that sector are up 35% since you came aboard." Tom sat down behind his desk, still sometimes amazed by the turn his life had taken. "Rich, I need you to know not a day goes by that I don't think about that moment when I found your wallet. I was so tempted to keep that money, but you didn't," Rich said. "And that's what makes all the difference. I keep thinking about what would have happened if I had kept it. $3,000 would have solved my immediate problems, but it would have created much bigger ones," Rich finished. "Tom, if you had kept that money, you never would have been the man I wanted to hire. Your integrity was worth far more than what was in that wallet. It was worth this entire opportunity." As the sun set over Omaha, Tom thought about the chain of events that had brought him here. A simple act of honesty had transformed not just his life, but the lives of his family. Emma was now in advanced classes at school and had been on 3 educational trips. Sarah had been able to quit her part-time jobs and was taking college courses she'd always dreamed of. And Tom himself had discovered talents and abilities he never knew he possessed. That evening, Tom drove back to the farm, his farm, which was now thriving thanks to the investment from Hamilton Industries. As he walked through his fields, now equipped with the latest agricultural technology, he reflected on the lesson his grandfather had taught him so many years ago. Character really was what you did when nobody was watching. But sometimes Tom had learned somebody was watching after all, and sometimes doing the right thing brought rewards beyond imagination. The old oak tree where he'd found the wallet was still there, its bare branches reaching toward the star-filled sky. Tom paused beneath it, remembering that moment of temptation and the choice that had changed everything. He pulled out his phone and sent a text to Rich. "Thanks again for seeing something in me that I didn't know was there." The response came quickly. "Thanks for reminding me that good people still exist. The world needs more Tom Mitchells." As Tom headed back to the farmhouse where his family waited, he smiled to himself. He'd always believed that doing the right thing was its own reward. But sometimes, life surprised you with rewards you never could have imagined. The end.
Thank you for watching this story unfold with us here on M&A The Story Unfolds. If you enjoyed it, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and turn on the notification bell so you never miss a new tale. We'd love to know where you're watching. Leave a comment below and tell us what part of the world you're joining us from. Your support means everything. See you in the next story.